now tuned in to the Cold Hard Truth, Cayman's #1 hard-hitting live podcast show, where we feature some straightforward conversations on political, social, and celebrity news and all things happening in the Cayman Islands and around the world. This show was created to give the people a voice and a means of being involved and informed without any filters. Sometimes it gets crazy, but we always keep it real. We bring you the tea, piping hot, so grab your favorite beverage and join the conversation via WhatsApp at 324-1612. Email tips@caymanmarlroad.com. Now, here's your host, Sandy Hill, broadcasting live from the beautiful Cayman Islands.
Just pull up the camera. Good morning, one, and good morning, all. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. It seems like it was a super long weekend for me. I don't know about you guys, but here we are. So let's get it, as they say. We've got a lot to discuss. First of all, let me just check in for your comments and your morning greetings. And I want to remind you guys, someone reminded me on, I think it was Saturday's show, about people jumping in on the live. And the difference with this format is when you jump in, it would bring up the video if you have video, but you can also just hide your camera. You have that option when you jump into the live. So you know what? This is a new week. I'm going to start sharing the link in the comment section in case anyone does want to jump in the conversation, share your comments, your thoughts, or even just give a morning greeting, give a shout out for Christmas. Whatever you want to do, that's the link. Simply click on that and we'll bring you into the show. So good morning to Brandon. Good morning to Melita. Siobhan is here. Jackie is joining us from Honduras, Rotan, Oak Ridge, Pandy Town. Thank you so much, Jackie. I did see that you were watching the show last night as well from Rotan, so I'm glad that you've been enjoying your programming. Cassidy, good morning to you as well. So in the event that you guys missed last night's show, we were at the Pedro Castle. And of course, at Pedro Castle, this is now becoming an annual event. And I think it's a wonderful event to attend. They have the annual Christmas at Pedro function, which they do like a Christmas lighting. They do some caroling and songs and a few dance performances. And I think it's really great. I mean, it's so nice to kind of kick off the holiday season officially. And last night, of course, yesterday came on Thanksgiving. So it was the first Sunday of the month. And I'm sure that was no coincidence in terms of their planning of the event on that particular day. And so it's wonderful to be able to go out and enjoy that. And we live streamed as much of it as we possibly could. The funny thing with Facebook is they're always like, if you live stream stuff that has music that belongs to other people, they always say to you, oh, they're going to take your stream down, which kind of sucks really. But I don't think they took it down. I need to double check because they always say, oh, somebody else is claiming this music or whatever. But most people release it. Most, I guess, right holders do release it once they recognize that it is a matter of like people are just singing Christmas carols. So even if you own Merry Christmas or whatever the song is, it's like, come on now, you can't like not allow people to join or to enjoy an entire Christmas concert because of that, right? So yes, so thank you guys so much, those of you who joined in. I did see a number of you really enjoying it. I think we did it in several different segments because of the length of the evening, and we tried to catch as much of it as possible. So good morning, Marshall. Thank you for tuning in all the way from North Carolina. As you guys know, we have Caymanians and Caymanian adjacent individuals all over the world who tune into the program, and we love that. It gives us a good way to keep in contact with people. Barbara, I believe, who lives in Paris, is actually on island now. And I think she should still be in quarantine. So Barbara, if you're joining, give us a little bit of a shout out. Olivia, good morning to you. We did have some people doing Christmas greetings last night. So we're going to put those together as well and put them up on the website for everyone to enjoy. We'll put it on Facebook, of course, YouTube. And we're going to go around and compile a whole list of Christmas greetings coming into the holiday season. I think it's so important this year for us to really celebrate Christmas, extra, as far as I'm concerned, because it's been just such an unbelievably difficult year for a lot of persons. So it looks like the videos are still there that you can check out. So please, if you missed the concert last night, it was really, really wonderful. And I would invite you to go back and have a look. So how was your weekend? Lots of things happened over the weekend. So late last night, before I went to bed, I saw that in the US, what's his name? I always forget his name. Trump's lawyer, Giuliani. What the heck is his name again? Is it? Hold on. What is his first name? Rudy has been hospitalized now, is the latest. So last night, what we had was that he had tested positive for COVID. Now the news this morning, the updates is that he's actually been hospitalized. And of course, he is President Trump's personal attorney who has been fighting the election campaign. And believe it or not, they're still fighting it because this weekend it was reported that, sorry, he's still going around to different areas, according to reports coming out, trying to convince people that Trump won the election and trying to get support, which at this point, to be honest, he really hasn't been getting a whole lot of support for his campaign in that regard. So, yeah, it's quite shocking, but he has not only tested positive for COVID. This morning now, reports are that he has actually been hospitalized. He is 76 years old. So, of course, his age alone makes him high risk. And he was in Michigan, Arizona, and Georgia over the last week trying to get those election results overturned. And of course, he was not wearing a mask, which is quite, which is the usual for people in the Trump administration. Now, as we all know, a number of persons in the Trump administration have actually tested positive for COVID. So he's no, he's not special in that regard. But I think that he's actually the first one, other than President Trump, who has actually been hospitalized as well, probably because of their advanced age. So 2 of Trump's sons have had it, his wife has had it, and a lot of people in his cabinet and in his administration. So you guys remember that Rudy Giuliani is actually the former mayor of New York. He was admitted to Georgetown University late yesterday. And the way that the world found out about it, that he had COVID, that he had tested positive, is that it was tweeted by President Trump, which you guys know that Trump likes to make most of his announcements by Twitter. I don't know what he loves about Twitter, but he sure loves Twitter. So no official details have been confirmed or provided about his condition. And it's unclear when he actually received a positive COVID test. And basically his spokeswoman has not responded to any questions for comment at this time. And I think on Sunday he was at some Fox programming as well. I'm assuming that was in person, but it does say that the news immediately raised questions or concerns about the extent to which Giuliani, who'd frequently appeared maskless while crisscrossing the country in recent weeks to advance Trump's baseless claims of election fraud, may have spread the virus among public officials. On Sunday night, it was announced that the Arizona state legislature, where Giuliani had appeared at the beginning of the week, would be closed to the upcoming week over COVID-19 concerns. So as usual, the Trump administration and most of his close supporters are still walking around like they have no care in the world when it comes to COVID. And by the way, the COVID numbers continue to rise, an astronomical number in the US. So Giuliani's diagnosis, which is the latest positive test for a prominent member of Trump's inner circle, also further undercuts the president's frequently repeated and misleading claim that the US is rounding the corner when it comes to COVID. In fact, the nation is seeing a record number of hospitalization, a surge in deaths, and experts and healthcare workers fear that things are only going to get worse coming into the holiday season, and infections are going to spike further, fueled by Thanksgiving travel and gatherings, which it was recommended that people stayed home. So I guess they probably didn't heed that warning in the US either. His son, Giuliani's son, has tested positive, of course. Close contact and campaign advisor Boris Epstein, I think that's how that's pronounced, tested positive in late November. Since he tested positive, Giuliani traveled to Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, where he addressed a group of Republican state makers in a crowded hotel ballroom. So, wow, I mean, you can do some really stupid things when you're in the middle of a pandemic that doesn't make any sense. He was also at the Georgia Capitol in Atlanta on Thursday to attend a state Senate hearing about the November election. And during a break, he removed his mask and he was wearing on that day to greet and take pictures with supporters. He traveled to Michigan on Wednesday for a state House committee hearing that lasted 4.5 hours. And during that time, he wore no mask at all. And he pushed misleading claims that the election was stolen from Trump. At the beginning of the week, he was also in Arizona meeting with some GOP members of the state legislature to discuss unsubstantiated allegations that the election was fraudulent. Then he went on from, so he was Arizona, Georgia, he was all over the place, really, being incredibly reckless. And there's some photos here of him taking pictures of people. And it says that he could have, in fact, exposed thousands of people. So it's really shocking. And what is even more shocking to me is that Americans still don't get it. And honestly, if it was up to me, they would be on the do not let in to key man list, because they're so incredibly stupid. And I mean, I hate to call anybody stupid, but let's be very, very honest here. They are, by and large. They appear to not concern themselves with the realities of COVID. And here's a picture of him and some of his supporters actually taking photographs during the last couple of days. So those two, and they both look elderly to me, have inadvertently exposed themselves to Giuliani, who has now tested positive for COVID. So a lot of people have tested positive in the Trump circle. Like I said, 2 of his sons, his wife, and a number of close advisors. They've hosted a lot of large events during the campaign, leading up to the campaign, and certainly after that, with many times not wearing any mask and little social distancing, if any at all. So his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, a number of his top aides, both in his campaign and in the White House, have all tested positive. I mean, it's really absolutely shocking. And, meanwhile, most other politicians, Biden and so on, have managed to remain safe. So his political affairs director, Brian Jack, also tested positive. I think this was earlier in November. He has had, oh my gosh, it's been a whole slew of individuals, folks, that have tested positive that are in the Trump administration, in his inner circle. And so Giuliani is just the last in that number. Top campaign aide Nick Trainer, he's tested positive as well. Meadows was 61. So to be quite frank, it's only a matter of time before one of these individuals in Trump's circle who tests positive is actually going to die from this. And I guess they all think because they have the best access to medical care, like Trump, he can afford to downplay it and continue to fool the American people, talking about they are, what is his word? They're coming around the curve, or whatever the heck he calls it, which is a blatant lie about the position of this virus. It is really scary because we see them come here with their same nonchalant attitude, and it's disturbing. So let's talk about an American who has come on our shores with their nonchalant attitude and what the end result now has been because of her actions. So if you missed the show, folks, on Flashpoint says that, is it really shocking? I'm actually surprised that many of them did not catch COVID-19 earlier. I guess on the one hand, Flashpoint, it isn't shocking. But on the other hand, I do remain a little bit stupefied at how incredibly stupid people can be. Here's our jackass of the day. Last week, Sunday, a week ago, she decided to breach her quarantine, took her bracelet off, and went to an event with several hundred people at that event. Now, you guys will know by this point that she's gotten a slap on the wrist And basically nothing is happening to her because everybody's like, she's being rewarded with, she is being rewarded with community service because that means that she gets to stay on island a little bit longer. And at that point, probably hang out with her boyfriend. I'm not sure why the judge thinks in this instance that community service is going to be a deterrence. I really have no clue. But as reported last week, she got no fine. So think of the irony of this, folks. I want you guys to have this settle into your brains for a second, right? Our government tells us that they're putting stricter measures in place. Okay? So we go from $1,000 fine to supposedly a $10,000 fine and up to 2 years imprisonment. And what actually ends up happening is we get 0 fine now as a possibility. And why is that possible? I've said it before. You've got to look very, very closely at legislation. And, when I first read, when they finally decided to pass the legislation a month after, and after this other couple, the French-Canadian couple had breached quarantine, quarantine, I did say, this is interesting that the wording on this legislation says up to a $10,000 fine. Because when you word things like that, our legislators know that that means that there will be no minimum fine. So why would we do that? How is that more of a deterrent? So here they are. So they each got fined $1,000 plus $200 for court fee and whatever. This young lady now, American from Georgia, gets community service. You tell me how this makes any sense at all. We were thinking that we were actually getting legislation that was going to be more strict and more stringent. And the truth of the matter is the opposite has happened. Our government has managed to pass legislation that has watered down, right? That have watered down the process. So yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous. All right, give me 1 second. Okay, so unbelievable, but this is precisely what it is. So yeah, I mean, who would have thought that that would have been the end result of legislation that's being touted as, oh yeah, this is what it's going to be. Well, not so much so, folks. That's not what it is at all. The truth of the matter is, now we have legislation that gives judges complete discretionary power. Before, they had to fine them $1,000. Now they don't have to do any such thing. They have complete discretionary power to do kind of whatever they want. And in this case, what they did was they didn't give her a single dollar in terms of a fine. They gave her community service, and community service along with, oh yeah, she's going to pay for her quarantine. Well, duh. We know that she has no choice but to pay for her quarantine. And that hardly seems like a deterrence. Like I said, many of you are of the opinion that that is actually a reward as opposed to anything else. Shocking, yes, beyond shocking. I don't even know. I do not even know how to explain this or I mean, what do you guys think of this? This is crazy to me. Well, the boyfriend, quite ironically enough, apparently he now will face more serious charges than she did. And in fact, she will only get community service and pay for her own quarantine now, which before I think she was staying at a family property of his. And the boyfriend will now receive, listen to this, he's now in quarantine as well as 6 other people. He's going to have to pay for his own quarantine. So, yep, that's great. He has to complete 40 hours of community service, just like her. But in addition to that, he got an extra scolding from the courts, whereby the court basically said that, he should have known better. And he's an international figure, and they cannot understand why he would have taken a chance by allowing her to come to the Cayman Islands and to do what she did. So in the most unusual of circumstances, here is a man who is now a young man who is being penalized more than his foreign girlfriend who came into the Cayman Islands. And it doesn't sit well with a lot of us, to be quite frank and honest. We think, what? What did you just say? That he's going to get 2 months worth of house arrest, essentially. So from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m., he will not be able to go anywhere, and he will be, in lockdown, essentially. And that's okay, apparently. So she gets a pass, and I'm thinking, how does this make any sense? Yes, I get that he's an international figure, but why is she any less culpable for her own actions? She too is an international figure. Her father is a huge deal in the world of watercraft racing. So she's more internationally known than this young man, Vijay Ramjeet. I mean, I didn't even know who the heck he was when I heard his name. I'm like, who is Ramjeet? If you're in that circle, I suppose, yes, you're going to know who Ramjeet is. But outside of that circle, I don't have any idea who he is. I had to do one of those Caymanians go around, come around explanations. Everybody's like, okay, his mama is so-and-so, and his grandma is so-and-so, and dad is so-and-so. And I needed a whole graph drawn up to even go, okay, I know who he's related to, but I still don't know who he is. So, in the world of international racing, he might be considered a big deal. But honestly, other than that, who the heck knows this young man? Nobody knows him. And I'm really, really disturbed by the judge. And I'm still trying to figure out who the magistrate was in this case. And I'm going to court this morning. By the way, I'm in court. So I will, I'm following a couple cases I'm going to tell you about here in a second. But I also need to provide an update on some other things that have been going on that have been really bizarre and interesting. So I will be ending the show a little bit early today so I can make sure I get there in time. But yeah, I'm lost for an explanation as to why the judge felt that Ramjeet needed to be held more accountable. In my opinion, hold them equally accountable. So yes, if it had not been for him, she would not have been here. She would not have even known where the event was to attend. All of these details, that's fine, whatever. I totally get that. And I do think that he needs to be held responsible. I'm just not so sure that I agree with the fact that he should be held more responsible for this than her. After all, she is an adult. And, I'm not going to say that Mr. Ramjeet is not worldly. I don't even know how old this young man is. I'm sure he's smart enough. However, I do not believe that he is as worldly as her. I mean, let's just be honest. She, has probably had way more exposure to the world, international racing and being all over the place with her father than he has. So tell me what you guys think about this. And of course, if you saw the show on Saturday, there are even additional concerns about how other people who are being impacted by her decision and by Ramjeet's allowing her to attend this event, how they have been negatively impacted. So other people are now in quarantine because of this couple. And they are, by extension, being penalized more than Ramjeet and her, because their employer, which is the Cayman Islands government for some of them, is saying that they're not even going to give them this time off. They're going to have to take it as vacation time. It's just wrong all the way around. But I do not think that he should be subjected to 2 months unrestriction. And I don't know, it seems like this couple just started dating. I got to be honest with you. If I was 23 or 25, or I don't know how old these kids are, if I was that age, in that age group, I would be breaking up with this girl, and vice versa. If I was her, I'd be breaking up with him. I'd be like, listen, clearly this is a sign that we're both stupid about this relationship. And maybe we need to mature a little bit before we, go anywhere further, I suppose, with this. I don't know. Let's see your comments. Flashpoint says, why would someone produce fake COVID-19 test results just to go on vacation? Is this not what people are doing in order to gain entrance to Bahamas? Absolutely correct. And this is what I'm telling you about Americans. I hate to say this because I lived in the US for 15 years of my life, and I do feel a little bit of an affinity towards Americans, maybe more so than other nationalities. I don't know. But, I do understand the American culture to some extent. And I got to tell you that sometimes I think they're just stupid beyond recognition. Like, they just do things that make absolutely no sense whatsoever. And by and large, with COVID, a lot of them have been doing things that are absolutely crazy. So, folks, again, feel free to jump into the program. I'm just reminding people on WhatsApp that they can do so as well. We're now doing video call-in. Like I said, if you still have your morning face on and you're not ready for the world to see you, rest assured that you can turn off your mic, and then you'll just get that little emoji-con. So Ken Sa says, only white people get away in court. A lot of people do not want to make this a white versus anything else conversation. But I do have to wonder what it is about her that makes her different, where she gets no fine at all. I mean, if I were the courts, I would at least keep it like, okay, legislators have no sense. They have allowed the courts to have complete discretionary power. If I were a magistrate, I would say, okay, clearly the legislators ain't got no sense. But they didn't mean to do this. I think they're just stupid. Or did they really mean to do this? I mean, it's a question that needs to be asked of the cabinet members who approve the wording of this legislation. Did you guys mean to give judges complete discretion? This is why you end up suing the courts every time they make a decision, because you have such poorly written legislation, which we have 3 lawyers that are current cabinet members. Alden McLaughlin, who's the premier and leader. O'Connor Connolly, who is a member of, she's head of education, and Tara Rivers. You mean that not a single one, let's forget all the other persons on the cabinet, right? Let's say that they weren't up to scruff when it comes to legislation. You mean to tell me that 3 lawyers sitting there looking at each other didn't think, oh, the drafters put in here up to a $10,000 fine. No, that's not what we meant. However, I do still think the magistrate should have used a little bit of their common sense, although I can't really blame them. If you give them discretionary power, they can do whatever the heck they want. But I do kind of feel like they could have said, what we'll do is we will keep it at the $1,000, which is where it was before. Don't go below that bar. And that's exactly what they have done. They've dropped it way low. I mean, it is shocking. So Della says it's a disgrace. Like I said, Kensa, I don't know if it's a white privilege situation. I do think that it is a privilege situation. I don't know if it's white, expats. Oh, we don't want to upset foreigners, although they come here and breach our COVID rules that expose us all to this very deadly virus that we no longer have widespread community spread. I don't know if it's a situation. I don't know. I can't tell you what's in the judge's head. And that's why you write legislation in a particular way to make sure that this sort of thing does not happen. So I kind of almost like I give the judge 10% blame and the legislators 90% because they're the ones who have actually created a situation where this is even possible at all. It's just unreal. But then I also really wonder what is going on in the judge's head for holding the boyfriend way more accountable than anybody else. So Karen said should have fined her and sent her back to the US, cesspool of COVID, where she belongs. And I agree, fine her and get her out of here. Why are we allowing her to stay? Allowing her to stay at all is not a deterrence to her. Even if she has to go to the Humane Society and clean up dog poop, you know, she still gets to spend time with her boyfriend and hang out in the Caribbean and go to the beach. How is that a deterrence? Why wasn't she put on house arrest? You know what I'm saying? Why isn't she forced to stay home from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m.? She's not going to be wearing a bracelet like a criminal, but yet Ramjeet is? Trust me when I tell you this does not sit well with me at all. Sue thinks maybe it's a matter of money talks. I don't believe that our judges and magistrates get paid off in that sense at all. So I don't personally think that that's what happened. Like I said, the legislators left it wide open. So the judges like, oh, well, we can do whatever the heck we want. Who can we bombard with a clear message that this is not acceptable? I'll tell you what, Kathy, your legislators. And you know the best way to tell them that their behavior isn't acceptable? All the stuff that they've done over the past 4 years, May 26th. Try to find some better options, like people who understand that when they write legislation, writing it in a particular way has a direct impact on our lives. Now, you guys know that Alric Lindsay comes here every Thursday now for the last month or so. He's been coming on the program. And he's been dissecting legislation and trying to break certain things down for us. One of the things that I like about Alric, and I've said this before, is he not only looks at, okay, this is what potentially is wrong with this legislation. Remember when we broke down the whole concierge program? He really highlighted in a very concrete way, like these are concerns. But then he also provides solutions, like we could word it differently here. We could do this with it. We could do that. And that's the kind of representatives that you want in the LA. You do not want other members in there who are just going to sit there and go along to get along, because that's what we have now. And I'm going to talk about that in relation to Mr. McKeever Bush here in a second, because that is a whole other situation that really has me quite upset and really pissed off. I don't know if you guys got to see his comments during this what was it called? Parliamentary inaugural thing that they had on Friday, which we did live stream. I'm going to talk about some of that. But let me finish up your comments here, folks, on this particular topic. And then we're going to shift gears a little bit, because I do want to talk about the ridiculousness of what is known as McKeever Bush. Because this man, honestly, sometimes I got to wonder about Mac. I mean, he's had 36 years in government. He's obviously a very astute politician, but So Kathy, that's how you let him know it's not acceptable. Melita says, so is her pa. So she should have learned how international figures work by now and should not have did what she did. I agree. This is what I'm telling you. Like, they're more international than our little Ramjeet. Nobody knew who the heck this boy is. Miss Janet says that she got away with a slap. Shameful. Yeah, not even a slap. I honestly think that she has been rewarded for her actions. And that to me is just wrong. Kathy says, clarification, foreigners. So many are given bail and abscond, given a slap on the wrist. Well, we see this all the time, folks, with firearm offenses, where if you're caught with a bullet as a Caymanian, you're going to jail for 7 to 10 years. As an expat, you get fined until you're told to get on the next plane or whatever. So there is no doubt a disparity in how justice is doled out in this country. And it is an uncomfortable situation to be looking at on a regular basis. And yes, it does not make any sense. It is absolutely 100% wrong. When is it going to change? Never, if we the people sit back and see no need to change it. That's what it's going to change. All right, folks, let us have a look here at some additional comments. So if you want to jump in the conversation, shoot me a message and I'm happy to join you in. Don't be shy, guys. If you can type your comments, jump on and just tell us your comments as well. So Karen says they didn't read it. Good Lord. What's the point of having legislators, who are in charge of legislation if they don't even bother to read? That's crazy to me. Beautiful Toshi is joining us here this morning. Toshi, I trust you had a good weekend. Kathy says they're a bunch of educated fools. Let's be very honest, Kathy. Most of them are just fools. They're not educated. We have a lot of members of LA who don't have one single piece of merit in terms of education. The part that I'm more concerned about is not so much educated or not, it's being a fool. Because to me, this is a no-brainer. If you sit there and you write legislation on a regular basis, you have you should have the understanding of what up to means. This is not, this is not brain surgery. It doesn't require a whole lot of technical understanding. If I give you a budget of $5,000, I say, right, you can spend up to $5,000. That means that you as an individual has the discretion to not spend a dime, spend $5, $10, or the entire $5,000 budget. Common sense. A 10-year-old should understand this concept of what up to means. So one person on WhatsApp is asking, why was she even permitted to come in? And we have asked this question last week as well. Because they're saying, I thought visitors were not allowed to come in. Well, this is where travel time has a lot of questions to answer, in my opinion. Now, I'm aware that last week they said, we were going really hard at them. Well, my job is to highlight issues that concern this community, not to worry about if I'm hurting your feelings as government workers in travel time. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings, but I'm more concerned about protecting this country than anything else. And if that means calling out and asking questions, just like this viewer has asked about why was she even allowed in? It's the same question I asked last week. Because to me, that also makes no sense. We've had a calamity of a situation created here by numerous government agencies and numerous personnel within government making questionable decisions as it relates to this. So the first point of entry, the first question, how did she get in here? Because right now we're closed to visitors. We're supposed to be open to a very limited category of persons during this phased-in process. And that includes if you have family members here, if you come back on a work permit, if you own property in the Cayman Islands. So what category did she fall into? Oh, you have a Caymanian boyfriend, not a husband. So they're not family. You have a Caymanian boyfriend that you've been dating for all of 3 months. That should have been a red flag right there. and this is where Travel Cayman needs to be asking some serious questions, that you should not be permitted to come in. The other question is, how are they even proving what they say? So if she says, oh yeah, my husband Ramjeet, or is government going, please let us see your marriage certificate? Because people are going to lie. Flashpoint reminded us of the fact that the Americans were lying through their teeth, falsifying a clearance certificate to be able to get into the into the Bahamas, my apologies. During the height of COVID a few months ago, the Bahamas had to stop it. They shut back down their borders. So what checks and balances are in place, folks? How do we know what is actually being said to Travel Cayman, and are they verifying any of it? I doubt it. That's concerning. So Marshall says that by that crazy girl not getting a fine or sent back home, this will only make others who come to Cayman want to do the same thing with no regard. And I agree. What we saw happen in this case is absolutely no deterrence at all. And if I was, an American here doing whatever the heck I wanted, and I came in, today we have 8 of them coming in a private jet. I sure hope that they own property here at least. People are coming for a vacation, folks. That's exactly what they're doing. And listen, if you own property and you wanted to come here just to chill out and get away from the COVID madness in the US, I couldn't blame you. Nobody could blame you, but you got to respect the quarantine restrictions. So vacation in your posh home or wherever it is that you are staying. And when you don't do that, it causes us to be put in a very untenable situation. So Kathy says she's going to be paying attention this upcoming election. We need to clean our house and all the closets too. Amen, sister. Good morning, Gina. Shania says it seems as though she intended to do this long before travel. I agree with you 1,000%. Of course, she would have known when the event was. And like the young lady said, Gabby said on Saturday, the craziest thing about this is she could have really planned ahead, come in 15 days before, and provided she had a negative COVID result, she would be fine. Jesse's saying, how can you force a visitor to do community service when they're not a resident? The logical course is a monetary fine. This sentence seems awkward to enforce. Well, I don't think enforcement is going to be an issue, because if you come into this jurisdiction and you break any laws, you are subject, well, you're supposed to be subject to the same possibilities as anyone else. So a community service is something that anyone can get from the courts. So whether you're a resident or not, if you breach a law in this jurisdiction, you're open to fines, community service, jail time, everything that anybody else going through the court system would be subjected to as well. How they enforce it is they assign you someone from, what's the department called? Rehabilitation, whatever. They assign you one of those officers, and they will make arrangements with you on how to carry out your community service. Now, someone on Saturday was asking, oh, does she need a work permit to do community service? No. Community service is court mandated. And it's not like you're going to go and do community service at the Ritz-Carlton hanging out by the pool all day. Community service is, they work with certain organizations. So it might be the Humane Society. It could be, the Boys and Girls Home. Normally it's people who actually need help that you'd be working with. So Jesse says, so how long are they dating? That long with us locked down since March? Well, Jesse, it looks like this might have been a quarantine dating situation, right? So what I've been able to ascertain is that young man was actually dating somebody else. And a lot of people on last week's Sunday, when I was like, who is this Ramjeet's guy's girlfriend, Skylar Mack? And Caymanians were like, who? We don't know anything about him dating anybody else but this other girl. So apparently during COVID, that doesn't stop relationships from falling apart. So he had time to develop a new relationship. And I'm guessing, they've probably seen each other at events before. Her dad is always here. They probably knew each other. Young kids. Jesse, you don't have to meet people anymore to start dating and get married. You can get married online. You know how many Russian, DR, Dominican brides, Cuban brides, whatever, weddings happen with people not even meeting each other? Like literally, you just start the thing online and next thing you know, you're in love. So that's the new 2020. It's not even 2020 related. The new fandangle way of relationships. Yeah, they're all built online. They don't necessarily last long, but whatever. So yeah, Toshi, they probably knew each other and, started corresponding during COVID. COVID was hard on everybody. So maybe the heart was a little bit more welcoming during COVID. Karen says, looks like this government is itching for us to get a second wave. There's no second pension for anyone to draw down on. Girl, you got that right. Be very, very clear about that. Good morning, Charm. Thank you so much for tuning in. Melita says boyfriend after a whole number of, yep. Well, this is what I'm saying. Did government even probe any of this stuff? Because that is where now it becomes incumbent on government to do a little bit more of their homework. So community service it is, folks. All right, let's have a look at a video from McKeeva Bush. Now, you guys know that Mr. Bush was in court last week on Thursday, where he was pleading guilty to charges of assaulting a woman, not once, not twice, but basically 3 times. He pled guilty to 2 common assault charges out of 3, and 1 disorderly conduct because he was cursing at her, calling her a bitch, a lesbian, whatever, acting like a lunatic. On Thursday at lunchtime, you guys will also be aware of the fact that he refused to come out of the courthouse when he saw media outside. This is a member of the Legislative Assembly for over 36 years by his own account. And then he showed up on Friday without a care in the world. So the following day in the Legislative Assembly, participating in a very historic moment, which after 36 years, I think most people accept that he should have been there. However, under the current circumstances, it is a little bit unusual that Mr. Bush shows up, wouldn't make his face be shown on Thursday, some form of being ashamed. But on Friday, you have no shame and you participate in this historic moment where we are changing from Legislative Assembly to Parliament. I'm going to tell you why it's historic here in a second. But not only that, but what he had to say in the Legislative Assembly at this function really made me cringe. And I don't know how many of you listen, because I think a lot of times when these legislators start talking in the LA, we all tune them out because we're like, who cares? But you got to care, because the things that some of them are willing to say to you, the people of this country, whilst they're in the Legislative Assembly, is really quite shocking and disturbing. So I want to show you, give me 1 second here, a video clip. So I've extracted this portion of his speech. So the first part of his speech, he was just going on and on about, oh, Jamaica sent their congratulations. Bermuda sent their congratulations. Bahamas, like all these Commonwealth countries or former Commonwealth countries sent their congratulations for Cayman, making this what's considered a constitutional advancement. But listen carefully to what Mr. Bush has to say after that part, because you want to understand how these legislators think about you. And he doesn't mince his words. So let's listen very carefully.
And this first meeting of our parliament, I will ring this warning bell. If you listen around, every conceivable complaint is being made on the radio show, mind you, on our own radio too, on social media and other mediums. I take note. I have listened to the best of the people and have adjusted my thoughts with an open mind to see what is the problems. People are concerned about matters. Some are listening to those who can complain good and have a gift of speaking. Those leading the charge against everything, it's not beneficial to anyone. They are prepared to act irresponsibly to get their way. And it has been said, if they can't have their way and be the captain, they will go in the engine room and wreck the engine. As I listen, I don't hear solutions. And my warning bell is this: if we Caymanians listen to what I'm hearing, and if that is the kind of Cayman of the future where the church is being torn apart at times, and where government is derided at all levels, not just the politicians, but the civil. If that's the kind of future, then only God could save us. There are no solutions. And those listening must ask the question, have those people done anything to ever help anyone? They will talk about something not seen or felt in the abstract, and that when you check, they have done nothing but talk with nice, flowery language. Honorable members, if we do as they are advocating, those who have nothing will have less. Those who have some little thing will lose it. Take what I'm saying serious, regardless of how you think I am as a representative. In our island today, it seems there is this urging to demonstrate. They are urged to demonstrate about everything. They see it on television and think that Cayman is the same. But we are not. They say demonstrate against government, demonstrate against the courts, demonstrate against the LPB, demonstrate against the schools and teachers, and maybe demonstrate against the speaker too. And yet, it is plain as the nose on your face. This coalition government has done as good as can be expected, complicated with the effects of the virus as we must deal with now at this critical time. Now we are to be thankful and careful of where Cayman is at. The world has turned upside down and chaotic, but our God has blessed these islands. If Cayman is destroyed in this arena of international disruption and uncertainty, Cayman will not survive. As I said, those who have will have less, and that might be taken from them. Those who have nothing will be impoverished. Tell your children and grandchildren, as I do mine, Cayman is the best place in the world unless you go to Kigoda, where there's nothing, and you will have nothing. Think of how bad off the people are in Honduras, San Andres, Providence, and Nicaragua after this hurricane season. Let us be thankful for what we have. Be thankful to Almighty God, because it is Him that has blessed us and not we ourselves. Help those, think about it, where we have come from. Think about it and strive to take care of each of our own families. Help those that are really helpless. There are some things to straighten out, yes, but Cayman is into a good thing for the future. think of how well we have survived this pandemic, that the opposition and government worked together to save us, and the independents as well. We have worked together. Oh, they removed my hymnal. I wasn't going to sing, but I was going to remind you, as the English songwriter says, it is a favorite of mine, I feel the winds of God today. Today, I lift my sail. Thank you, Premier. Thank you for the cooperation you have given. Thank you, Leader of Opposition, for your cooperation and understanding, particularly in these times that we are faced when so much is demanded of the government. And we
Let's stop it there, folks, because I can't take another minute of this. Let's dissect some of what the Speaker of the House has said. First of all, if I were him, I would have made a very quick speech about the historical moment, which he did make some discussions on that, of what this was, and just sit my behind down. Because to me, this reeks of someone who has no shame whatsoever, no remorse, no accepting that his behavior has consequences. John reminds us, in his opinion, that what has been demonstrated here with this quarantine breach isn't a question in his mind of white privilege. He said it was not that. It is what we've been calling, because he's a member of Lodge. Now, I don't know if her father's a member of Lodge or not, which there are many involved and close to the Ramjeet family. Investigate it and you will see for yourself. Well, like we said, it didn't help him much because he got a worse sentence than the young lady. But John goes on to say it's the same reason why Makiba Bush can't get in trouble for nothing. He's a long-standing member of the Lodge, and that's why he gets away with everything. Same reason why a year later, Edlin Martin in the BRAC has never been to court for selling numbers to the BRAC inspector. Nothing in court for him. Actually, his matter was dispensed with, John. You may have missed it, but he got fined and his matter was dispensed with. So that's a done deal. Now, listen, I hear a lot about Lodge and I get the concept of Lodge, but here's what I want to say. This goes beyond anything to do with Lodge. I understand that Lodge members help each other out. They look out for each other. That is, in essence, what they do. But there's a greater problem in this community that goes beyond that. It is the good old boys network where whether they're a Lodge member or not, they are looking out for each other. And yes, this is a sense of privilege. This is what happens. People look out for each other because they know each other. They're connected. They work in the same circles in terms of business. They go to the same church circles. I mean, we see it time and time again in play. And it is unfortunate that it happens. But until we acknowledge that this just isn't about Lodge, this is about privilege, and privilege seeping through so many different facets of our lives. So yes, Mr. Bush has a lot of privilege after being 36 years in the Legislative Assembly. There's some people who he can do anything. It'd be like Trump. Trump says he can kill somebody. And there will be Americans who will still support him no matter what and who will still cast a vote for him. And if you don't believe that that is true, even here in the Cayman Islands, I encourage you to think again. There are people here who feel like they can get away with anything. Right? So Mr. Bush is no different. I am pretty sure that he is surprised at the fact that his case has even gotten this far. He's surprised that the victim had the wherewithal to protest, to go through with charges. Because initially, if you remember what I said on Thursday, evening if she was going to initially do nothing about it. Oh, just warn him. A man chokes you, pulls your hair, punches you in the face on 3 separate instances in the space of 20 minutes. He could have literally killed her in that kitchen had he taken her head and hit it up against that kitchen sink. Less than that has killed a person. 5 people had to pull him off of her. And after all of that, she was still thinking, oh, I'm going to give Mr. Bush another pass. The prosecution said this was not the first time she had been verbally assaulted by him. Now, this time, obviously, it went to a different level. And it was after she calmed down that she thought, no, I'm not going to do this again. You can imagine being in a workplace where the owner of the establishment's father, an elected official of almost 40 years in this country, feels like they can come into your establishment and literally beat the shit out of you and there will be no consequences. I want you guys to understand what I'm saying here, folks. This is beyond disturbing. And for him to then have the audacity to stand up in the Legislative Assembly and say to us, the people, let me remind you of some of his words. He said he's going to ring this warning bell. Okay. Then he goes on to say that every conceivable complaint. So we're a bunch of complainers. We protest everything, he says. And ironically, he says that we, the people, are going to even protest him. Well, Jesus Christ. Sir, with all due respect, would you not think that the people have a right to protest what you have done? Really? You think that your behavior is A-okay and should not be subject to a protest? I do not understand you, sir. Mr. Ezzard Miller has been trying to get this man removed. Even on Thursday, Ezzard is still saying, listen, why is this man sitting in the Legislative Assembly with no repercussions? He's still Speaker of the House. He's still double dipping into salary, because remember, he gets 1 salary for being Speaker and 1 for being the MLA for the District of West Bay, whatever it is, East, West, I don't know. And he does not think that we, the people, have a right to protest our own government. Oh, we complain about everything, he says. And you know why he mentions that, oh, we're going to be protesting against him too? Because he probably saw this same message that I saw, which is, yes, there are people who are going to be protesting him. These people didn't have the balls to do it on the day of Parliament because, oh, this is a highfalutin function. 232 or 200 something people were invited to sit inside only. The most elite of this country who are politically connected. And this is what I'm talking about now, John, to your point. It's not always about lodge. It is about people being connected, and people want that invitation into the Legislative Assembly to sit there and feel special. And they will do anything for that. They will turn a blind eye to the ills of our politicians and allow them to pretty much get away with anything. Do you know how uncomfortable you have to make yourself in this community, as small as Cayman is, to say, I'm not going to stand for this kind of foolishness? And yes, I'm going to speak out. Of course, you take the chance of getting castigated, being an outcast, losing out on job opportunities, losing out on contractual opportunities. Speaking of contractual opportunities, and then I'm going to get back to his speech, Linda says that he's a master at gaslighting. I was watching, now as you guys know, I was at the event and I was trying to bring you guys the ceremony. And of course, CMR was not on the invite list to go inside. We were not permitted inside. And in fact, it was quite embarrassing, to be honest, but we were essentially told, oh yeah, the Speaker of the House, which he's the one who approves the list of individuals, didn't approve you to be on the list. And I was like, well, I'm not really surprised by that, but at the same time, here's a man talking about the fact that we protest everything, and he wonders why we protest everything. We protest everything because you're trying to shut media down. You don't want people to be honest in this community. You don't think that people should have a voice in this community. And to be quite frank, it is really, really disturbing. So, you shut us out and you think that somehow that's going to stop us from reporting on anything. Well, Mr. Bush, what I would say to you and any other member of the Legislative Assembly that really believes that they can shut out CMR, CNS, any media house, and deny people the right and access to information, I'm going to remind you that the people are the ones with the power. And that's why I'm encouraging my fellow Caymanians to take their power back come May the 26th. You might have the power in this moment to say, oh, CMR can't come in to the LA during this historical moment. But I'm going to say that you do not have the power long term. And in fact, the irony of everything, I'm going to show you guys how, here in the Cayman Islands, we have a saying that God doesn't like ugly. Well, not only does he not like ugly, but, it seems like at times that things come around really, really quickly in terms of certain things. So here we are at the function, and lo and behold, just told that, oh, you can't come inside. You're not on this privilege list. We don't want you to be able to serve your audience of almost 30,000 followers on Facebook alone, another 15,000, almost 16,000 now on Instagram. And as we were walking outside and I turned back around to look at this holy house now called Parliament, look at the little glimmer, the little sign that God sent me. I'm going to take it as a sign because you people want to take everything else as a sign, so why not? Of not to worry. We will always get the information. I could not believe that the wind was blowing in such a position that we did not even have to wait for the unveiling to happen. We got a sneak peek. And yes, we were able to put this sneak peek up and to show everybody, whoa, this is what the sign is. It's now the Cayman Islands House of Parliament, and there is our beautiful coat of arms. Oh, well, Mikiva, what can I say? And of course we posted it up. Who are you hurting by not allowing us into the Legislative Assembly? You think you're hurting CMR and our viewers, but what I'm going to tell you is the people are smarter than you. And the people know that despite your words to the contrary, that they're complaining about everything under the sun, according to you, that they have a right to complain. It is our democratic right to complain about anything we want. He says we demonstrate against everything. Distractors is what he calls us. We might be lightheaded. We poke fun in a distracting way. He claims that the LA moving from an LA to Parliament makes this country stronger in democracy. No, sir. That name change will have no impact whatsoever. If the people in this country are not participating If the people in this country are not speaking out when their own elected government does wrong, this will not be a democracy. This will be a dictatorship. So it's insulting when you talk about the strength of our democracy because of a change in name. And yes, I get the historical importance of that. But in the next breath, you want to talk about we're a bunch of troublemakers who are always complaining and demonstrating about everything. And we need to be thankful for what we have and just go sit our behinds down. I'm sorry, sir. Say what? That's not how it works. Maybe that's how it worked 15 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. Politicians could tell the people that they're here to run the show. We have no say in the process. We're paying their salaries with the most expensive living in the world. But guess what? We must just sit down and shut up. Well, I, for one, I'm here to say that those days are long gone. We're not going to sit down and we're not going to shut up. If we want to protest, Smith Bacadir, if we want to protest what you guys are doing to the environment, if we want to protest what's happening with the cruise ships, building a port, we want to protest that you've beaten a woman and have no remorse, right? That your lawyer has the audacity to get up and say that you should not even have a blemish on your record. If we want to protest those things, sir, with all due respect, we will do so. And it doesn't matter what you say. And it doesn't matter that you think that we protest too much. Nothing has ever been achieved when it comes to governments unless there was a citizenry that is willing to step up and say, enough of this BS, we will take it no more. Every major political shift, every major human rights movement has come about because of protests. So in case you haven't read your history books, go back to the French Revolution. Go back to how entire countries were formed. Even Mahatma Gandhi? Protests. Martin Luther King Jr., protests. You could go back way before that, thousands of years. There's been religious protests. Christians have protested. Jews have protested. So, yeah, people protest. It's what people do. And oftentimes, it is the only way to bring change about in this country or any other country in the world. So for you to tell us, oh, you've got life the best you can have it, not so much so. There are a lot of us that are not living our best lives. There are a lot of us who can't afford a home, who can't even afford an apartment. I've got people over the weekend begging me to help them find apartments because we have no protections in the area of landlord, leasing, tenancy, whatever. People can discriminate against you in housing for absolutely any reason or no reason at all. And yet we're supposed to sit back on our laurels and say, oh, well, we live in the best place in the world. We do not. We have a lot of opportunities in this country to fix the things that are wrong. I don't think it's beyond that point. But to just sit back and be comfortable with what we think is going on here because somebody has it worse than us, yeah, of course people who just got hit by 2 Category 5 hurricanes have it worse than us. Duh. That's kind of stating the obvious. But does that mean that we shouldn't complain about anything? Sir, really? No, it doesn't. And in fact, those countries such as Honduras have some of the most corrupt governments in the region. You run for political office in that country and they don't like you, they just have you killed. It's as simple as that. So aside from their current national or natural disasters that they're dealing with, they also deal with a lot of political issues because people refuse to speak up because they can't or they feel fearful. Is that the type of country that we are attempting to have here? I mean, is that what you're talking about when you tell us to stop protesting, stop agitating? Well, that's not how I was raised, to be honest. And like I said, I've spent 15 years of my life in the US, and one thing I have learned is that my voice has some value to it. And I'm gonna let it be heard. So yes, even if it is just on social media, clearly you're paying attention. Are you not? So I was really uncomfortable with that speech. I didn't think that it was appropriate. But it gives us an insight into how our legislators think, some of them. Troy says, a strong independent press is a vital element of democracy. I wish we had even more investigative press. Well, people are afraid, Troy. And I cannot tell you how I have had this discussion even with Wendy Ledger at CNS in relation to my own case, which on Thursday is going to be sentencing day. So I invite all of you to come out, see how this works, see what the end result will be. And I have got people, Wendy and others in the space of media, who are like, this is really a concerning decision for them because now they worry, right? What if they do something to piss somebody off and that person decides to pursue the criminal side of things? The court has said truth doesn't matter for this offense. It doesn't matter if what you said was true or not. And most media operate on the basis that the truth is the foundation of, if you've spoken the truth, if you told the truth, you're protected. Well, in the civil sense, when it comes to defamation and slander, that is correct. But in this particular offense, which has nothing to do with defamation or slander, this is your words have harassed someone. The judge has found that words of truth can amount to harassment. And so Wendy has said this. She said, Sandy, I have lost sleep over this. This is really concerning. She's spoken to the prosecutor who says to her, oh, well, you would never do a podcast about Matthew Lindsay like this. And Wendy says, why would you say that? Maybe one day I would. That's not her format. She doesn't do a podcast at all. But are you saying that, oh, we can't do podcasts because that takes it to another level? Like, what is it here? If people don't understand what Troy is saying here and the overarching implications of what has happened in this particular case, you really, really missed the boat. Yes, Kathy, some people believe that they're above the law, that they can't be removed. And when he sat there and thanked the premier, I thought, yeah, he should thank him all right. Because the premier and his government are the reasons why this man remains in the Legislative Assembly. If it was up to Ezzard Miller, if it was up to the members of the opposition, he would be gone. Well, some members of the opposition. There would have been a vote of no confidence a long time ago. So unlike Mr. Bush, who's attacking the people, Mr. Ezzard Miller saved his first speech to discuss McKeeva Bush and why he is even there. This is what Miller said. He said, it's disgraceful, pointing out the expletive laden and bigoted WhatsApp messages Bush has sent in wake of the assault alone would have been enough to force the resignation of a speaker in any other country. Mr. Miller said if this was the UK, he would not even leave his house today, much less presiding over the historic renaming of the country's house. He goes on to say the conversion of the Legislative Assembly to Parliament is a single, sterling opportunity to return the dignity and respect to the institution that has been eroded by the unchecked and unaccountable, disgraceful behavior of the current holder of the position of Speaker. And that this is certainly not the way to start the Parliament. Hats off to Mr. Miller, representative for Northside. He's attempted to bring a motion of no confidence. Let me remind you that it was rejected by then acting Speaker Barbara Connolly, a woman in the Legislative Assembly, rejected a motion of no confidence against the Speaker. Folks, you cannot forget these things when you go to the poll on May the 26th. I like Barbara as a person, but this has nothing to do with that. I am disappointed in every single member of this coalition government that has allowed Mr. Bush to sit there in those honorable walls and dishonor it by the things that he has done and he has said. It is one thing to read something in print. Oh, he pulled her hair, he did this, he did that. It's a whole other thing, folks, to see the video footage. I saw it in court on Thursday, and I was very disturbed at how violent it was. It's hard to explain that kind of violence, really. And trust me, a lot of you has asked me for the video footage, and if I had it, you would have it. But I do not have it, because I think every member of this community should be able to see visually for themselves exactly what transpired. You should be able to see this footage. It should be released to the public. Pulling someone by the hair and not letting go, punching them in the face, choking them out, putting them in a chokehold. Folks, this woman she seems tall. I don't personally know her, but she's not a big woman. And Mr. Bush is a good, I don't know, 300 pounds? He's a big man. And so I can only imagine how fearful she was during that whole situation. And then for him to turn around and send a message about that lesbian, oh, she's making this into a lesbian hangout and what I did to her. as though it was something to be applauded and something to be proud of, was really disturbing. Karen says, why are we advocating for children to educate themselves and think for themselves if you simply want a government to dictate and control people? Use your voice where it counts. May 2021 can't come any sooner. I couldn't agree with you anymore. Trust me, Sai, a lot of people would want to see that video. And this is why, you guys have to appreciate that you can participate in court. You can go to court. Anybody can go to court and sit down and watch proceedings. And sometimes you have to do that in order to get an idea of what is involved and what is being alleged. And what is wrong with the government is that they will do anything to keep this coalition government together. They don't want to lose power. This is all about power and control and protecting the good old boys network. Now, let me make a few more comments about the event on Friday. Now, I know a lot of people worked very hard to pull it off. There were some mishaps that were very, very obvious, even in terms of the vehicle that drove, I think it was the premier, didn't come in through the way that it should, how they were directing the proceedings, the procession. I saw someone make some comments on, I can't remember if it was YouTube, but they made some comments online somewhere. I think it was the government's YouTube stream about how the procession was not being done properly. Here's some, I don't know who this person is, says, why didn't they call the Cadet Corps officers to write and help prepare for the parade? Get it right. If the regiment doesn't have the right ceremonial dress and firearms and ready as senior contingent, let them wait. Technically, a regiment major should be parade commander. Much more attention, pun intended. We need to stop accepting anything in Cayman. And I don't know who this Yornell Hill is, but they posted this during the live stream of the event. And I thought it was interesting because when I looked around, I said to myself, where's protocol? Now, you guys know that we actually have a protocol office, and they are responsible for this type of thing, I would think. They do all of the official parades, all the official funerals and, celebrations and whatever. And who I saw in the foreground here was Alfonso Wright. So here's what you need to know. Remember, Alfonso was given a contract to do this, what was it? Celebrate Cayman, something about our coat of arms or something. Earlier in the year, late last year. And so Alfonso has just been hanging around since then. He is a PPM member. He is a Lions member with Alden. They go way back. I guess they're both in lodge. I don't know what their connections are, but I know they're very tight. He was once an elected official with the Progressives, with PPM. And after that, he's been unemployed with no job. And of course, we don't want any Caymanian to be in that position. However, I want to point out to you guys the discrepancy here. So he gets a job to arrange this previous celebration that we had. But it doesn't stop there. So it appears to me that Alfonso is now being given certain responsibilities and a continual rollover of a contract. So he was the executive chairman of the Celebrate Cayman, which... Funny enough, he has that on his LinkedIn profile as like a great thing. Anyway, so yes, he was executive chairman of that. I'm just trying to see what the dates were on that. So he did that whole thing. Okay, fine. 60 years since our first constitution. First Celebrate Cayman's unveiling coat of arms, blah, blah, blah. So he did that. And now he's a protocol expert, apparently. And he's going to be taking over, I guess, all official jobs from protocol, because nowhere did I see the protocol office They have a head. They were not involved in this at all. And I thought, this is really weird. And there were things that this other person observed and pointed out that were not done correctly at all. So what gives? Now, we have seen this government on more than one occasion look out for their previous political allies when they don't get into office. Here he is. This was a Celebrate Cayman situation. But my question is, if Mr. Alfonso gets the benefit of being employed, getting a job after he no longer is an elected member just because of his connections to PPM, why is it that Jonathan Piercy can't get a job? Let me say it again for those sitting in the back of the gallery. So everyone pretty much got taken care of. Who was part of PPM. Once Alden gets in, he takes care of them. Anyone who ran against the government, who didn't agree with the government, guess what they get? Nothing. Let me remind you guys, I'm going to put some faces to all of this. Jonathan Piercy, folks, is a qualified Caymanian, a degree-holding Caymanian, who has headed up at one point DCI. So he was director of the Department of Commerce and Investment. He's run for political office, almost got elected last time, but because he did not run with the government, wasn't a PPM member, wasn't one of their friends, what has Jonathan been up to all of this time? He's been sitting in the unemployment line for the better half of, well, I've lost count now, but at least the past 4 years. So he worked for DCI from June 2011 until he decided to run for political office. He was also the director of the Cayman Islands Film Commission. He has a BA in finance from Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. So by all accounts, this is a bright young man who could certainly find some sort of employment in this country. But no, other people get revolving contracts for positions that we already have Caymanians employed in. We already have a protocol office that should be planning these events. And I'm sorry, but I'm just asking the question, where was protocol? Why wasn't that their event? So you give him one event of Celebrate Cayman, and then all of a sudden, Alfonso is going to plan all of the country's official events? And I'm sorry, like I said, I made some observations. I saw some things going wrong, and I'm no protocol expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I was sitting there because those of you who are watching the live stream heard me in real time saying, "Erks, what the heck is this?" Somebody's looking less than bright in the moment. And then he chases after the vehicle to tell him, no, come back this way. And I'm thinking, You see, that's why they don't want us there. Because that's the kind of stuff, folks, that we're going to observe and say, what the heck? You know why you have a protocol office? Because that person should actually be qualified. Now, I wouldn't doubt they've already sent Alfonso off to some protocol course, because you know Alden and his taking care of his buddies. And like I said, I don't care if it's because they're his friend, they're lodge members, lion members, bosom buddies, cheating buddies. I don't care who they are. And I don't care what the connection is. I'm telling you, the connection is there and the connection is real. So of course they're going to be looking out for those individuals. And this is concerning, because even when they pull off an event, they still ain't doing it right. At one point, the premier was having to pull an accord or do something that he should not have been doing. You see, when you're trained in protocol, you know better. You know better than to go and correct the premier during an official ceremony, or to snap your fingers at him, calling him to come to you. If you were properly trained in protocol, even in the midst of something going wrong, there is a way to handle it. And snapping your fingers at the premier of this country, now the head of our parliament, simply isn't the way to do it. But they don't know that because they have no protocol training. And yet they're being pushed up, into positions that they ain't qualified for and given jobs that they're not qualified for. Charm says he's UDP. That's why, well, if he was UDP or CDP, as they're now called, McKeever sure isn't looking out for anybody who ran with him previously. And I will admit to Jonathan's detriment that he ran with McKeever before. The last election, he said that he was an independent member. But the last election, everybody was like, we are not going to trust anyone who had an affiliation with CDP, UDP, whatever they want to call themselves. And honestly, they have lost favor with this country. And the only place that one of their members might get elected is in the District of West Bay. Other than that, they ain't going nowhere. And I hope we keep it that way. And in fact, I hope that we can erode their stronghold even in the District of West Bay. Come on, Kathy Ann. Let's take out Captain Eugene. We can start there. Come on, Raul or somebody else. Let's take out Tara Rivers. We can start there. There's a couple seats up for grab in the beautiful District of West Bay. Sharon says that she wishes that he would run again. I think a lot of people wish that Jonathan would run again. To be honest, I think he should go right back at Chris White. He can be picked off, Jonathan. I know you have been given a warm time over the past 4 years in terms of your own predicament. But the people need good representation. And we can pick them off. Trust me, we can do it. Kathy says West Bay may very well change too. Clean house. Well, we can only hope, but I don't know, boy. My Bayes, they special when it comes to keeping the trash. Louis, thank you so much. That's it for me as well. I've got to run to court. Let me remind you, folks, we do have a poll question up. Speaking of the election, send your questions. You can send them via WhatsApp, 324-1612. 10 questions. We're looking for 10 questions for anyone who's running for public office. Submit your questions. You can send them through Facebook, WhatsApp, email, tips@caymanmallroad.com, because we're getting ready now to conduct interviews and to put our candidates on the spot. So please send through your questions, because this process is about you. It isn't about anybody else. So we want to make sure that we get that information up. Couple things over the weekend that happened by way of breaking news. So this boat came in with 12 Cuban migrants on it, 2 women and 10 men. They're now in Little Cayman. They came in via Little Cayman. I'm assuming they'll transfer them to Grand Cayman probably today, if that hasn't happened already. So they made it here. I think when they set out on these journeys, I don't know where exactly they're intending to go, but you know, this doesn't look like the most seaworthy vessel for 12 people, to be honest. I'm glad they're all okay. There was also a shooting incident over the weekend that has left 1 person in the hospital. And this was a situation of shots fired in the air, but the police have confirmed that they have launched an investigation after shots were fired in the vicinity of Vic's Bar on Seymour Drive. And the incident happened shortly after midnight, with 1 man who was said to be at the scene of the incident attending the police station with an injury. So it says here that he was hit in the head. He was hit in the head with a handgun by a man in that area. And he's received treatment and since been released. So folks, keep it locked to our online channels. We've got Instagram. We do have Twitter now as well. And Facebook, of course, bringing you all the latest news on whatever format that you prefer. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you, Leslita. Miss Sue says, nobody in Savannah is worth voting for yet. Might have to move to West Bay to vote. Lord Jehovah. Kathy has sent her question via Facebook. Thank you, Kathy. Folks, yep, we do need a lot of candidates, a lot of good candidates for the election. There's still got a little bit of time left, but I must say that I'm disappointed that a lot of them have not officially come out as yet. So, folks, that's all she wrote. I got to run off to court. You guys be safe. Have a good day. And we'll see you tomorrow morning, God's willing.
Thank you for tuning in to another edition of The Cold Hard Truth. Make sure to check Facebook for showtimes and more information and the latest news at CaymanMarlRoad.com. Subscribe to our IG and Facebook pages to get the latest happenings.